Oh, hello wonderful human beings, Sheldon Evans here, and in today's video I'll be showing you how you can take your photos from this to this using nothing other than your iPhone. Let's jump right into it. Alright guys, so if you're like me, you probably spend 99% of your time editing your photos on your laptop or your computer because it's more convenient and it's better. You have that big screen to edit on, you have apps like Photoshop and Lightroom to really fine-tune the details and the adjustments in your photo. You can color correct, you can remove blemishes, you can remove objects from the background, and so on. But sometimes all you have with you is your phone and you want to post a photo. Maybe it's a sneak peek from a shoot that you've just done, maybe you're sitting at a coffee shop and you don't feel like lugging out your laptop and doing a full-on edit. But you also don't want to slap a cheap Instagram filter onto that photo and post it to Instagram because you want it to fit your aesthetic and live up to the high standards of the images on your Instagram account. Well, that's where these apps come in. I'm showing you how to do a full edit on your phone that can eventually be posted to your Instagram stories or even your Instagram feed. So let's jump into my phone and start with the first app. Okay, so the first app we're going to be taking a look at is known as Touch Retouch, which is incredible for removing blemishes and cleaning up the skin. Before we do any sort of color correction, we want to make sure that our base image is perfect. So open up an app or download an app called Touch Retouch, and then go ahead, click on albums and open the photo that you want to open. All I did was transfer this photo directly from my camera over Wi-Fi to my phone. Now, depending on which camera you have, this could be more difficult, but these days just about every camera has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth functionality. But if it doesn't, you can actually get a card reader for your phone that will plug into the bottom and you can transfer your photos directly from your memory card onto your phone that way. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove some of the blemishes on this photo. So you can use two fingers to zoom in just as you would on any photo on the iPhone, and we're going to click on our quick repair tool at the bottom. Now, wherever you paint with one finger is going to remove that blemish. So you can see this little blemish here, it'll remove it. You can use two fingers to pan around and you can just work around your image like this and start repairing the photos or repairing the blemishes on her skin. And you'll see how well this works. It's actually incredible how well it works. So really take your time to work around the image and repair and remove all the fine little details on the image. And if you make a mistake, just like I did there, you can simply hit the back button at the top to undo that. Now, if you get to an area like down here on her sweater where you want to remove some of these little fine dots, you can click on the settings button and then bring down the size of your brush and then really paint away these fine details. Now, once you've made your way around the photo, you can press the button at the top right to see what you've done, your before and after. So as you can see, we really did clean up the skin really quickly and it almost looks like a professional retouch. But before we move on to the next app, I just want to take a second to thank Squarespace for supporting this channel and sponsoring this week's video. Now, Instagram and social media is great, but you're not a professional if you don't have your own website. And if you want to be a professional photographer or professional in any field, you need a professional website. Squarespace is amazing. I built my entire website without touching a single line of code. I can add new pages, upload new images, and change anything on my website in seconds. So if you want your own website, you can visit this link and you can use offer code Sheldon to get 10% off of your first order. So whether you need a domain name, a website, or an online store, make your next move with Squarespace. But more on that later because we want to get back to editing. Next, we're going to be doing dodging and burning. And to do that, we're going to use good old Snapseed. So hit the icon in the top right-hand corner, click on Open In, and then select Snapseed from your list. Now that we have our photo in Snapseed, we're going to work on the dodging and the burning, which is basically contrast in specific areas of our photos. So we're going to brighten up some areas and we're going to darken up some others. Now, how do you know where to brighten and where to darken? Well, just work with what you have. Lighten the areas that are already bright and darken the areas that are already dark. That'll be adding contrast to your image and really giving your image a depth or a 3D look to it. So we're going to hit the tools button at the bottom, click on brush, and zoom in, and as you zoom in, you'll see the brush become smaller because the image is getting bigger. So at the bottom, we have dodge and burn. We can use the up and down arrows to select -10 all the way up to +10. Now, +10 means it's going to brighten up your image more, +5 less, eraser is going to erase what you've done, and the exact opposite, -5 and -10 will make your image darker. So we're going to start with brightening up the image. So let's go over to +5. I don't really like to go more than that because it does become too intense. And we're going to start lightening up the image on the side of the face where the light is coming in. So we're going to brush a little bit on her forehead, a little bit above her eye, a tiny bit on her cheekbone, and then we're going to zoom in and brush a little bit on her nose. We want to add a 3D effect to her lip, so we're going to brush on her lip slightly, brush on the top of her lip up here. That might be too much, so we're going to hit our eraser, erase what we've done, and then brush in a little bit better. Then we're going to move down to her chin area, brighten this up slightly, brighten up her neck just a little bit, and we can move over to a hand. Now remember, when you're working on a portrait image, you want to make sure that you get the whole image. A lot of people will just retouch the face, and somebody's face might look amazing, but the rest of the image has been left alone entirely. But we want to make sure that we edit the whole image. So go over to her hand, and we're going to brush down her side of her hand and a little bit on her jacket. Now again, to see what we've done, you can hit the before and after icon in the top right, and as you can see, we've just added a little bit of brightness to the overall highlights in the image. Now it's up to you how far you want to go with this. I'm going to go in a little bit more, brighten up her eyes slightly. Now we're going to add in some shadows. So we're going to zoom in again, make sure that our button is set to -5 at the bottom, and we're going to paint again. So paint on the side of the image that has the shadow, so a little bit on her forehead. Again, that was much too much, so I'm going to undo and erase that again and go to our -5. We're going to brush a little bit on this side of the bridge of her nose. We're going to brush on either side of her eyelid here. We're going to move down here and add a little bit of shadow to her cheek, and then zoom into her lips and add a little bit around the edges to make it a little bit more 3D. You can work on the jawline if you want, and then don't forget about the hands and the jacket. So let's take a look at the before and after. As you can see, we've added some contrast to this image. Now you can obviously spend a lot more time on this and really fine tune it, but for the sake of this video, I'm trying to do it as fast as possible for you guys. And once you've finished your dodging and burning, you can hit this little eye icon in the bottom right to see what you've done and where your mask is and where you've painted so far. Next, we're going to work on the color grade of this image. And that's why I love Snapseed, because you really do have the same fine-tuning details that you get in Photoshop and in Lightroom. So click on Tools and then click on Curves. Now you could use the presets that they have here to adjust the curves and adjust the colors of the image, but we're going to do our own adjustment because we really want to fine-tune this. So click on Neutral, then click on the little icon next to the eye on the left, and we're going to play with our channels. Now let me explain how curves work. On the left-hand side is your shadows, and on the right-hand side is your highlights. If you increase on the right, you'll increase that curve color, for example blue in this case, in the highlights. If you increase on the left-hand side of the slider, you'll start adding blues to your shadows. So for this image, I want the highlights to be a little bit warm and the shadows to be a little bit cool. So we're going to go down here and we're going to add some blue to the shadows, and the curves work in the opposite direction as well. So if you were to remove blues from the highlights by adding a second point, you're going to be adding yellows to the highlights. So the opposite color or the complementary color of the curve that you're going to be working on will be added when you subtract that. So I'm removing blues from the highlights, therefore adding some yellows. I want our skin to be a little bit more vibrant, so we're going to go back to our curves, change to our red channel, increase the reds ever so slightly in the highlights, remove it from the shadows, and click on our check mark. Now again, we can just tap on our photo to see the before and after of what we've done. As you can see, it's really looking amazing so far. Now the next step is to add some contrast to our photos. And again, we could use the curves layer to do this and click on curves and adjust our main neutral curve, or we could just use the contrast tool built into Snapseed and do selective contrast. So click on Tools, click on Tune Image in the top left, and then as you swipe up and down on the screen, you can select what sort of tuning you want to do. Now I want to increase the highlights slightly on my photo, so I'll slide to highlights. As I swipe left or right, I can adjust the highlights on the image. So I want to bump up the highlights just slightly. Then I'm going to tap and slide up and change my contrast. I'm going to add just slight amounts of contrast. As you can see, it's adjusting at the top of the screen. Once you're happy with that, click the check mark again in the bottom right. You can tap and hold to see the before and after of your image. Now say if you were shooting and you exported your photos directly to your phone, but you got the white balance slightly wrong, you can adjust that, and you can adjust a ton of different things right in Snapseed as well. So just play around with the tools. For example, if I click on white balance, you can see if I just swipe left and right, I can adjust the white balance of the image. Now I'm really happy with the way this is looking at the moment. As you can see, the before and after, but it depends on how you edit on your computer and how you'll translate that into this app. You have just about all the same tools that you have in Photoshop and Lightroom on here. Now the final thing for this photo is I want to add a little bit of dimension and a little bit of a flare to it. So to do that, we're going to use an app called Lens Distortions. Click on Export, on Export again, which will create a second copy of this image and save it to your camera roll. Then we're going to open an app called Lens Distortions. So just open up your photo and then you can play around with all the different lighting effects that come with lens distortions, and there are some incredible ones in here. One thing to remember when adding a flare to a photo is remember you want to add it on the side of the image where the light is actually coming from. So in our photo, the light is coming from the right hand side, so you want to add a flare to that side. Play around with the different flares and see what works best for your photo. I'm going to pick a flare right from the bottom, which sort of looks as if it was shot through a window. I'm going to adjust it slightly, bring it down, adjust my color. I want it to be blue, the saturation, a little bit more. Then I'm going to adjust the blur intensity of this and bring it down because I want it to look sharp. And it does take some playing around with and some finessing to get what you're happy with. But once you're happy with it, you can add additional layers by clicking add layer. Now I want something bright on the side where the light is coming from. So I'm going to use something like this flare, drag it down here, position it just off frame. So now you can click the icon in the top right of the screen and then save your image. And just like that, you're done. You can post this photo to your Instagram feed and your stories. But if you want to take your stories to the next level, we can use an app called Unfold. And you've probably seen this by now, but I'm going to show you how to do it anyway. So open Unfold, click on the plus icon, name your story. Let's call it Retouch because that's what we did. Tap at the bottom of the screen to add to the story and then choose a layer. There's tons to pick from. So let's use this one at the beginning where we can actually see the entire image. Tap on the middle, select the photo that you just edited, rename it to, play around with the text. You can rename it to something like iPhone Retouch. And now you have a beautiful frame, a beautiful image, and you're able to post this to your stories. Just save it, save the page, and off you go. So I really hope you guys liked the tutorial. These are the apps that I use almost on a daily basis to edit photos on my phone and post to my Instagram. You may not even know if I've retouched a photo on my computer or if I've edited on my phone. And that's the goal here. We want our photos to live up to the standard that we're used to editing at, that we're used to delivering to clients, and we want to be able to do that on our phones. And as the world's moving, everything's moving towards mobile devices, so hopefully you are too. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you liked the video, don't forget to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this. I upload videos every single week, and as always, I shall see you in the next video. Cheers.